Gonna trust anyone. It's got to be the matriarchy. It's got to be the old wives. Are you absolutely insane that you chose to do this the way like a medieval peasant would? Connor's traumatised every time he sees a roses container at Christmas because he's like, oh, placenta gate. The baby felt more like an abstract concept before. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't like to see an actual baby. So we're doing it. I have the sacred text, which is the journal that I kept at the time, so I can't forget anything. Oh. Oh, well, now I've messed up the bed, so we have to do it. God, it's weird. Where to start? I've forgotten how to do this. I used to vlog quite a bit back in the day, and I don't remember how to do this. As if it has taken me a year to make this video. I had such intentions, but the stars were not in position for this tribute. Well, they're in position today. So this is going to be my birth story. I had a very positive experience, and I think it's important to share that for people who are quite afraid or quite, just not knowing what to expect about birth. When I was pregnant, I was consuming home birthing videos and home birth stories, and in fact, any birth stories like there was no tomorrow, and I found them really helpful, really useful in demystifying the process, in exploring all the potential options, potential interventions that you could come across when giving birth. And I think that was part of what made me feel quite calm and quite open and quite flexible to things that were happening to me while I was giving birth. You can have a positive birth, and you can have a positive home birth in the UK. There are still hiccups. There's always hiccups because it's such a crazy, like potentially traumatic, but even if not traumatic, such an intense experience that I can't believe that people are just doing it every day, and that like everyone's quite chill about it. Everyone's just like, oh yeah, had a baby, but people don't talk about the birth enough, in my opinion. As soon as I gave birth, I wanted to talk to every single woman I knew who'd given birth about it. Birth is such a random chance experience, so I don't want anyone to feel any kind of way in that they could have prevented or changed what they did in birth. However, what I am going to do is share all the old wives' tales that I did before I gave birth, just in case they have any merit, because if I trust anyone, it's the matriarchy. Okay, so if we're trusting anyone in this wild, crazy ride that is birth, I'm going to trust the old wives. Okay, okay. I need to try and like control myself and go back chronologically, because there's so many thoughts I have and they just like pop out really randomly. So I'm just going to try and like rein them in and go back to the beginning, and then if I've missed anything, I will come back to it at the end if I've missed any like tips and tricks or just like random bits of trivia. So the first thing that happened to me, one of the weird things about birth as well is until you've done it, because this was my first ever pregnancy, first ever birth, how do you know when you're in labour? Like obviously when you're quite progressed you would know because the pain is just incredible, but when you go into labour, you're feeling things that are different, but you're also not sure, like, is this Braxton Hicks? Am I making a big fuss? You don't know what the feeling is going to feel like to you. So you don't know when you're ringing up and being like, I think I'm in labour. You really don't know like what you're talking about, and you feel like almost like a fraud, even though you're like, well, how could I possibly know? So yeah, because well, I suppose it might help if your waters break, because my waters didn't really break, or at least they did, but it must have been so small that no one really noticed. I'll talk about that later. I'm getting ahead of myself again. We were 8 days ahead of our due date, and you know, when you're in that that bit where it's like, right, birth can happen any day from now, you're kind of taking each day as it comes and just kind of like trying to fill the days with things that might be useful or just might be enjoyable. So we had planned to go out for dinner that day. I got up and decided like I was going to clean the house because I must have been in my nesting era. But also every bit of cleaning that you can do, you're kind of trying to stay on top of it so that when you give birth, you know, you've got like a bit of wiggle room in terms of when you next need to like clean and tidy the house. So I took it upon myself to clean out one of the kitchen cupboards. So I got all the stuff out of the kitchen cupboard, and I was cleaning it. And then I went to the bathroom, and this is where I had what I wasn't sure, but I think it was a bloody show. It was basically like a bit of pink stuff, not to be too graphic, which was definitely unusual. It's also quite cute that I wrote that today I saw birds at the feeder again for the first time in a long time, because I gave birth in winter, so that would have been a strange occurrence. I decided, that might mean something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my hair. So I went upstairs, had a shower, washed my hair, came back downstairs, and then by the time I'd done that, I was like, there's definitely some feelings going on. There's some clenching. It felt like the Braxton Hicks, but they weren't going away. And I was getting a bit like I had to pause in the shower and just stand there for a minute and go, ooh, that was a bit painful. So by the time I came down the stairs, I was all clean and nice and I'd washed my hair, and I had all these plans to like braid my hair into a French braid so it'd be out of my face for labour and stuff, which I never ended up doing because labour kind of progressed too quickly for me to do it. Like I was almost like delaying doing things so that I would have things to keep my mind occupied while we were in this early stage. So, oh, this is so funny. The last few jobs I had down for today, I've just resealed a window ledge and I'm now sorting the kitchen cupboard. That's funny. So I resealed a window ledge, I emptied a kitchen cupboard, but I never actually got to sort it out properly. It was the cupboard, you know, where you keep your like stash of like bags, and it just slowly gets out of hand throughout the year until one day you have to get them all out and just put them all inside another bag. A bag inside a bag inside a bag inside another bag. Not the point. Oh my God. Connor asked me if he could put the bags back in the cupboard, and I said, no, I'll do it in a minute. I'll be fine. As I sort of the feeling was progressing, I ended up going, yeah, just put everything back in the cupboard, because I can't focus on that right now. And I'd also made myself a bunch of this thing that I had, which was basically like crack to me while I was pregnant, which was like, you know, the thing where you like smush a load of dates on a baking sheet and then you layer it with peanut butter and then dark chocolate and then sprinkle sea salt on it. Like I was eating that all the time because I had heard that dates can be good to like soften your cervix for labour and help you have a faster labour, and I was all about trying to speed up that labour. And I had some friends who had really, really long labours, and it was my first baby, so everyone was telling me it'd be a long labour, so I was like very keen on the dates. So then we rang the midwife, and I had planned a home birth. I probably should have started with this. It's too long for this video really to go into like why I decided to have a home birth, but if you're interested, pop a comment and I will, I'm sure, answer the question. I was lucky that my local hospital offers home births. The midwives are very knowledgeable. A lot of the midwives that are on the home birth team have had home births themselves, so I felt like I was in really good hands. But when you go into labour, you have like this number that you can ring to be like, hi, I've gone into labour, and then a midwife will come out and kind of offer to do some checks to see if you're actually, you know, in established labour or not. So I did ring the number at first, but I remember ringing it like being like, oh, I don't really know if I'm in labour. Like I feel like I am, but it might not be. It might just be this. Like, how do I know? And she was like, it's up to you. I can come, but she said if you're not in established labour, I'll have to go away again. So do you want to see how you get on first? And then so basically, I decided, okay, I'll ring you back in half an hour if I feel really bad. Unfortunately, I couldn't have the midwife that I'd planned my birth with because it was her day off, which was really gutting. But, you know, it was actually fine because the two midwives that did come were lovely. And I had a few little kind of coping techniques planned. So I had like a comb that I was squeezing with my hand to distract me from the contractions, and I was doing lots of breathing. But I think after half an hour, I rang her and I was like, no, yeah, I really do need you to come now, because I am, I was getting to the point where I think I was going to struggle to speak on the phone. Obviously, my partner was there, so he could have done it, but I was like, yeah, no, I need you to come now, because I can't really do anything. Like I was also leaning over. We had a glass coffee table, and I was leaning over it like on all fours, and I remember just like pressing my forehead against it because it was like nice and cool, and that was like a weird coping mechanism. But yeah, that was really nice. And I had my comb to squeeze, and that's basically how I got through like the first couple of hours of being in labour. So midwife came, and she basically was really flexible about what, she didn't like rush me or anything. She was just like, I can examine you if you want me to, but if you don't want examinations, I can watch and wait, we can watch and observe. What do you think? So I was like, okay, just watch and wait. And then, because I think I had it in my head that like if she examined me, that like meant I was on a timer or something. And I'm not sure. I think it could be more like that if you're in hospital. But because I was at home, I then just went, oh no, actually, I think I need to know how dilated I am, because if I don't know, I won't know how far. Like, I know it's not like a linear process, but I was like, if this is only, for example, if she examines me and says you're 1 centimetre dilated and this needs to ramp up another 90% before you give birth, I was genuinely thinking, I don't know if I can cope with the pain to ramp up by 90%. So I think if that's the case, I think I might change my mind and go to hospital and get the pain relief, because at this point I was really struggling. When I was like leaning over the coffee table, I was like, this is painful. I was making quite like low noises to kind of get through it as well. Lots of like kind of, I guess it was like mooing, but I was more just doing an ooh sound, so I kind of sounded like a little wolf that was howling. But yeah, it was getting really difficult to cope with. So I basically was like, actually no, just examine me. I want to know how dilated I am, because if this is only 1 centimetre, I'm going to rethink my plan to do like an unmedicated home birth. I'm going to get the epidural. Anyway, she examined me, and I was already, she said 4 or 5 centimetres was what her estimate was. So that kind of buoyed me up a bit, because I just went, oh, right, so this is like halfway. So I'm halfway, and I've had no pain relief. Like, I've not had gas and air yet. I've not got in the pool yet, because we'd moved the dining table out of our room in advance and inflated the pool. We'd had it inflated for a few days, because basically I decided I wanted it up 2 weeks in advance, just in case like anything happened. I didn't want it to be like a stress to like inflate the pool. You already have to fill it, which takes long enough, by the way. And one of my tips is start filling that pool before you think you need it, because I wished we'd started filling the pool earlier, because my labour progressed a lot faster than I expected it to. And I needed the pool. By the time I was getting in, I was like ready to rip someone's head off if they didn't let me get in the pool. While I was struggling on the coffee table, Connor had started to fill the pool, and they tried, they have to get it up to a certain temperature and everything. Also, in between, once the midwife had said I was 5 centimetres, Connor rang my mum, because I did want my mum to be there for the birth, but we didn't want to like have a false alarm and kind of get her over here and all excited and then be like, oh, actually, she's not really in labour or whatever. So we left it until the midwife said 5 centimetres, and then we were like, go, go, go. Yeah, so by the time I was getting dressed, contractions were like strong menstrual cramps. So I told Connor to put everything back in the cupboard, call the midwife. I didn't want to put myself on the clock, so I said I'd call back in a bit if it got worse. But it only took me half an hour to decide I needed her to come and see me. At this point, I was thinking, if I'm not in established labour, maybe I do need hospital pain relief, as the pain was constant and very intense. Luckily, she said 4 to 5 centimetres, so I was reassured that we were halfway, and that renewed my belief that I could actually do this. I spent the next couple of hours clutching the coffee table on my knees, holding a comb in one hand and pressing my forehead against the glass. I also got, good point, I would have forgotten this. I also got Connor to do some counter pressure on my lower back, which was actually really effective. And another tip is, if I did it again, I would make time to practice the counter pressure moves with your partner in advance of labour, so that they know exactly what to do and where to press. And also, the other thing I neglected to do was learn to use the TENS machine before labour. And by the time my labour was intense enough to want it, I just couldn't like think straight to kind of like I didn't even mention, like I didn't even communicate that I would have liked it, so no one could even help with it. I just had no time to figure it out, forgot about it completely, so it was just on the side, forgotten until after labour, and then I went, oh my god, TENS machine. And I have heard that if you're doing unmedicated, TENS machine really helps you get through that intense like stage. So yeah, but obviously you can't wear it in the pool anyway, so by this point I was getting in the pool. So pool takes some time to fill and get to the temperature, but as soon as I got in, warm water was amazing for the intensity of the contractions. The midwives didn't order the gas and air until I asked, can I have gas and air? And that's another mistake, right? Ask for gas and air straight away. Say, can you send for gas and air if you're having a home birth? Because it takes quite a while to get there. I live about 5 minutes drive from a hospital, and at one point my mum was like, do you want me to go and pick it up from the hospital, the midwives? Obviously she's not allowed to do that, but my mum was literally like watching me suffer, and she was like, I don't want my daughter to be in pain for any longer than she needs to be, so like I'll go and get it myself if you don't hurry up. But basically there was a bit of back and forth with the midwives in the hospital, and I don't know what the cause of that was. My suspicion was the two midwives I ended up having, I gave birth on a Sunday, and the two midwives I had were not on the home birth team. They were community midwives that support home births. So I had the impression that both of them would normally have been supporting a home birth midwife. So one person on the team would be extremely knowledgeable about what the process is for sorting everything out. And because both of them were like community midwives, I got the impression that they were a little bit less experienced in facilitating a home birth. I got the impression they were less experienced for a couple of reasons. One was the thing with the gas and air. They were asking for it on the phone, and I could intermittently, obviously, mostly my head was just buzzing with like, I was in the zone. I was like out of it, but I did hear them on the phone, and I could tell they were having some sort of issue on the other end about it. And I think it was like, I think they just didn't understand the process. Like the person on the other end was saying, no, we don't do that. And obviously the midwives knew they did do it, but it was as if they didn't know what the secret code was or what department to ask for it from, maybe. So they also didn't order it until I specifically said, can I get gas and air? Which was a mistake on my part. I assumed they would have already known that I would want gas and air, but I don't think now, looking back, I'm like, how would they know that? And also, a lot of people who choose to have a home birth tend to be like, I want an unmedicated completely birth. So the midwives do not push you to medicate, which is very nice of them. But basically they don't suggest things. They wait for you to ask for them. I think that delayed me getting gas and air, and I could have used it a bit earlier, to be honest. That said, once I got it, it didn't really make that much difference, and I don't know if it was just a distraction or something to hold on to and clamp down on, or whether I wasn't breathing it in at the right time and I needed to breathe it in earlier. I think I might have been breathing it in too late. Like once I felt like a surge coming, I'd breathe it in a bit late, and really I think I was meant to breathe it in before that. So that's another thing I would like practice or like talk to a midwife about, is like, what's the timing? My contractions were very close together for the stage of labour I was in, and it really made them struggle to be able to like take my temperature and stuff, because I couldn't keep still for long enough. They needed like a whole 60 seconds for the thermometer to like engage and get an accurate reading, and they had to try multiple times while I was in the pool to get my temperature, and also to keep putting the heartbeat monitor on the baby. I couldn't keep still once the contraction was in full swing. I'd like lurch forwards and then they'd like lose the reading and have to try again in between the next one. And every time it was less than 60 seconds. I think I was getting about 30 seconds between contractions for a lot of my labour. And it really made them struggle. Something I probably would have asked for, because obviously you can refuse anything. After the first few times of them taking my temperature and taking the baby's heartbeat and both of them being fine, I think I probably would have just been like, it's okay, like just don't do it for a while again. They have like a timing that they're meant to do it in between, but I think I would have been allowed to refuse. It just didn't occur to me. I was trying to like, I was half like in a trance, but like I was trying to be accommodating and be nice. I didn't want the midwives to think I was like a knob. But in hindsight, I probably could have said, it's okay, you don't need to take my temperature, I feel fine. Because I felt fine, you know, like I knew that I wasn't like too hot or anything. The other couple of things that transpired from the midwives not being home birth midwives, I think, were they didn't have, you know, the little, like, I think they have like a little mirror on a stick that they put into the pool to kind of see what's going on down there, because obviously they can't see because you're kind of upright. And they didn't have one. And apparently, like, again, I only learned this afterwards, but I think my mum overheard one of them go, do you have a mirror? And the other one was like, no, do you? And they were like, no. So no one mentioned it like loudly to me, but my mum overheard it, and I think they were supposed to have one. They also didn't have a receptacle for the placenta, and I'm not sure why they wouldn't have in their kit, you know, one of those like kidney shaped bowls that you have to be sick in when you're in hospital and stuff. They just didn't have anything, so they asked us, do we have a receptacle for the placenta? I'm skipping ahead again, but this one's funny. They said, oh, sorry, do you have a receptacle for the placenta? And we were like Connor was just like what? Like, he doesn't even know what they might mean. And they were like, oh, you know, just like a bowl or a thing. And he was like, so I think he ended up getting the, we have like a, you know, like a plastic roses container that we keep biscuits in. So he emptied the biscuits out of the biscuit tin and gave them the roses container. So now Connor's traumatised every time he sees a roses container at Christmas, because he's like, oh, placenta gate. Placenta didn't even end up coming out into that container anyway, but I digress. That's for later. So yeah, so gas and air took a while to come. I felt like I was breathing it, but it almost felt like to me that it was accelerating the contraction weirdly and made them feel faster and stronger. So I do think I was timing my breathing wrong. Something was not happening for that, because my mum said that when she had gas and air, she felt like she was on cloud nine and she was just going all like woozy and giggly. And I did not have that experience. And also, I didn't like the fact that the gas and air, like the tube or the pipe that it comes through, it like amplified the sound of me making that kind of like howling noise. So me going like, ooh, was like really loud. So it did sound like the room was like full of a flock of cows. So yeah, I didn't love the noise that it made me create. So I'm almost wondering whether I should have just binned it. But it was nice to have something to grip onto and just kind of focus my breathing on, because it did help me. I think the midwife talked me through some breathing at one point because I was breathing too fast, and she was just like, remember, focus your breathing, slow your breathing down. And the sort of the gas and air sort of helped you to like be like, take a big breath in and then, you know, blow it out. So Connor was on water temperature and keeping it the same, and he was like dabbing my brow with a wet flannel. He did use a kitchen cloth, which I have held against him, because I had prepared a pile of towels and clean flannels, and he went and got a kitchen cloth because I think he was just in like a panic mode and didn't know what to do. So he'd forgotten everything that we'd prepped and just went and got a kitchen cloth, like a dishcloth, and was holding that on my head. But hey ho, we laugh about it now. For the last like 2 hours, all I can really remember is being quite like dazed, leaning my cheek on the side of the pool. I did everything on my knees, and I do think that was the optimum position. I also had read about how to position your knees. You would think that you would want your sort of knees to be like out to make more space in the pelvis, but actually I'd read that turning your knees inwards and putting your feet out actually creates more space in the pelvis. There's videos about that online. So I'd made an effort to be conscious of my knee placement while I was kneeling the whole time to make more space in the pelvis. I think it's important to say as well, I had quite like a positive attitude about birth because I've done a lot of like dance and yoga in my life, and I feel very like conscious of like my body's alignment. I feel very like I know how my muscles and bones and stuff should be aligned, and so I feel quite comfortable kind of positioning myself, and that gave me like a confidence that I knew my body could do this, and I trusted my body because I've used my body a lot in my life. So I think if you aren't very in touch with your body, that's something to think about doing while you're like pregnant or before you get pregnant, is, you know, practice some yoga or some Pilates, do something that helps you with body alignment and feeling like you know what muscles do what. And I think it really helps if you already know where all those things are when you're giving birth. You're not like starting on a back foot. I already felt like I knew my body really well. I ended up not having any stitches. I had a very minor graze, is what they called it. So obviously there was like something did slightly tear, but the tear was so minimal that they didn't feel the need to do any stitches. So that was really, firstly, really nice experience not to have stitches, and then nice experience to like be able to heal quite quickly. But that's part of the reason I had such a positive experience, was because I was buzzing, like from like a couple of hours after labour. I was absolutely buzzing. I'm just like leaning in sort of a half trance on the side of the pool. Midwives are intermittently coming in to check heart rate and temperature. Midwives were pretty chill. They were very relaxed. They were just sitting on the sofa and chatting while I got on with it. I surprised myself by not being super aggressive or angry, or like I didn't shout at anybody in labour. I was very like zenned out. I wouldn't say like in a nice, blissful way. I was zenned out in a, I'm so exhausted and so in pain that I can't focus on what anyone's saying. A little bit like, you know, when you feel really, really nauseous, you just can't focus. You just like, just leave me alone. So I was probably just communicating in grunts. The only time I snapped at someone was because my mum apparently offered the midwives some biscuits, and I, in my haze, thought she was offering me one, and I just went, shut up. Which was quite tame for me, really. But apparently I just went, shut up, when she said it. And then my mum went, ooh, like, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't that I didn't want her to give the midwives a biscuit. It was just that I thought she was offering me one, and I was like, don't be so ridiculous. I'm in a pool, I'm holding gas and air. Like, are you joking? So obviously I was a little bit like departed from reality, shall we say. Anyway, in that sort of final couple of hours, it was just quite repetitive. There was a lot of, you know, just waiting for the next contraction, and then like sort of making like low noises and sort of mooing it out. And then after the contraction would end, I'd have like this really brief, like maybe a 30-second rest, and then I'd go again. And at this point, I did start to doubt whether I'd made the right decision to have a home birth and to not have any pain, like proper pain relief. I don't know whether people count gas and air as real pain relief, but it didn't really work for me. I didn't notice that it did anything. So I was kind of thinking, if this goes on, because we'd been doing it for a few hours now and it had ramped up very quickly, but in my head I still had, this labour is going to be really long, it's my first birth, you know, there's no way it's going to be over quickly. So I've got to do this for hours. And I was getting quite tired, and I was getting quite, like, the pain was very intense, like worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Just to be clear, this was a really positive experience, but I also don't want people to go in thinking it's like not the worst pain you've ever experienced. It is awful. It's so intense that like cannot be understated. Like, I can't believe women are just doing this every day, and we're so blasé about it, and no one even talks about like how you cope with the pain. Like, mentally, I was thinking, if I have another 8 hours to go, I might be insane by the time the baby comes out. Like, I genuinely had that thought. I also had the thought that was like, Holly, you believe in science, you're not an anti-vaxxer, and you live in an era where you can get pain relief. So are you absolutely insane that you chose to do this the way like a medieval peasant would? Like, you know, I did question my decisions. But now I know that when I was questioning my decisions, when the pain was at its worst, I think I was in transition, which is the period where you're literally about to give birth in the next hour. And if I'd have known that, I probably wouldn't have felt so extreme about it. It was because I was thinking, if I've got to do this for another 8 hours, I don't know how I'm going to survive. But actually, the intensity was obviously because the baby was almost there. Also, I just want to describe how a contraction feels, because it took me a while after birth to kind of figure out how I thought it felt. And the only way I can explain it is like, you know, when you're violently sick, you're like vomiting, but it's involuntary. You can't control it. And it's also like the muscles start doing it without your like consent almost. It felt like that, but downwards. So it was like being sick, like a violent like heave, but a heave that pushed down instead of up. And obviously that came with a lot of pain as well. But yeah, that took me a while to like articulate what it felt like, because I was like, I know this feeling feels familiar and I can't think of what it feels like. And then I realised it's like being sick, but downwards. Yeah, so that was weird. It's like a stomach convulsion. It's not like, to me like early labour did feel a little bit like menstrual cramps, but contractions don't feel like menstrual cramps at all. They feel like being sick, but downwards. Anyway, we're getting close, but obviously I don't know this. And at this point, yeah, I'm having a stern talking to myself in my head. Now that I obviously know that I came out with like very little complications, no interventions, and like basically no tearing, and I recovered really quickly, I now know it was totally worth it. So I just want to offer that as, in hindsight, it was totally worth doing it this way. But I don't want to lie and say I didn't have the thought halfway through, like, what if I made a mistake here? What if I should have just had, you know, everything that the hospital would have offered me? Anyway, my mum is watching me. The midwives are kind of chilling on the sofa, because I'm not making, I wouldn't say like, I knew the pain was escalating because of the way that I felt. Like I felt very drained and sort of depleted, but I don't think the midwives knew how much the pain had intensified, because I don't think my reaction had changed much from the very beginning. I think I was still making the same noises. The contractions were coming the same sort of speed, because they were fast from the beginning. So I don't think they really realised how close I was to birth. And it was in this quiet moment where my mum was sat on a kitchen stool just observing me and not saying anything. She was actually really good, because my mum normally, she's a woman who struggles to not give me her opinion on every little thing that I do. But during the birth, she was absolutely amazing. She was like an angel, because I think she just knew, like, don't talk, don't interfere, just, you know, just watch and wait. And it was really special having her there. But she was observing me, because like she knows me better than anyone, and she was just watching me, and she just looked at me, and she could sort of tell that what I was thinking was, I'd started to feel like a stretching down below. Like I'd started to feel like there is something there. So this was in between contractions where I only had 30 seconds. I had slowly started to work my arm down, like, because it had been like I'd been resting on the side, and I'd slowly started to work my like right arm down, just to like have a feel, because I just wanted to know, like, is the head there? Like, what is that I can feel? So I was slowly doing this, but I wasn't speaking to anyone. I probably had my eyes closed, and I was just doing it like 1 centimetre at a time, because just moving felt impossible. And I like felt the tips of my fingers touch this like flat thing underneath, like it, and I was like, oh my God, it's his head. But I couldn't say it, I couldn't do anything, because I'm still just experiencing contractions. But I felt that there was something there, and I was just like, oh my God, his head's there. Like, so suddenly in my head I'm picturing this like circular like gap with a flat, you know, scalp on it. And my mum was watching me, and she just like, it was like she knew, even though I don't think I was given many signals. She just knew that something had like must have crossed across my face, and she just went, Holly, do you want to push? And I just went, I can feel the head. And like I said it, I think I said it so quietly, and she just went, what? And I was like, I can feel the head. And then I just remember like everyone gathering around and everything just speeding up then, because I think my mum must have said to the midwives, she just said she can feel the head, and they must have gone, oh shit, like it's happening. So they all like zoomed around me, and the midwives started like, you know, putting their gloves on and like having a feel, and they were like coaching me to push, and I could feel this like stretching and stinging, right? Like, oh my God, like stinging. And so I assume this is what we call the ring of fire. And and I could just feel that everything at this point felt very like primal. I mean, it felt like very primal all the way through. It was such like a primal, powerful like experience that you're kind of, it's in your body. It's not, you can't logic it. You can't, it's not cerebral. It's all animal. The midwives are all gathering around and feeling, and then they start coaching me to push. And I think one of them like was supporting the perineum. I'm not sure, but I think she probably was under the water. And then you're just hoping every push is the last one. You're just thinking like, please let this be the last one. Anyway, I was nearly there. And then one of the midwives grabbed the gas and air off me. Not that it was particularly helping me, but I thought, brutal, like steal the gas and air. She grabbed it off me and was like, right, come on, like this is it. So I did the final push, and my mum actually managed to film like the baby like coming out of me, which is the most crazy thing to see. Like, it's just mad. It's just mad to see. He just like zoomed out into the water in a big like gush, and he looked like a frog. Like, he came out like this and just like looked like he like spread his arms and legs out, and he was just in the water, and it was just mad. So he like fully was like a little water baby. So he just came out, and then I think a lot of the sort of amniotic sac came out after him, because it was almost like my waters didn't break because he was in the way of most of them. So then all the waters came out with him because it all just came out in a gush. And yeah, it was just the maddest thing to see. And obviously he came out, because I was kneeling up, he came out like behind me. So then the midwife kind of grabbed him and got me to kind of lift my leg over the umbilical cord so she could bring him around to the front, and so that I could finally sit down. And I cannot express how good the feeling of going from like the ring of fire to just no pain is. Like, that they should be able to bottle that as a high, because that was like the best high I've ever had in my life, was just going from this incredible pain. Because I did scream at the very end. Like, I was quite impressed that I didn't scream for like the whole of the labour, but that last push when he came through, I hear myself in the video like go from like the like low noise to like an ah noise, and it's just, I don't know, it's just really funny to be like, that's my limit, you know. That was like the limit of the pain I could do without screaming in a high-pitched way. So he came out with a little scream, but then he was out, and then the pain just goes away, and you're just like, how can I have been in so much pain? And then it's just gone. So that was incredible. And then, to be honest, at the beginning, I didn't really like, I sort of forgot that I get a baby out of it, because obviously they can all see the baby. I'm just like not even looking. I think I had my eyes squeezed shut for the whole thing. So then the midwife is like bringing the baby around, and she's going, look, Holly, what have you got? And I just go, what? Like, what's she asking me? So I'm like thinking, I'm staring at this baby going, a baby? Like, and it's because we didn't find out the gender, but she was trying to get me to like see what gender it was. It was a boy. But my mum just like went, it's a boy. And I went, oh, right, that's what she meant. Because I was just staring at the baby like, a baby? Like, what does she think? So obviously I was still a bit dazed. She obviously, like, they put the baby on my chest, and we did delayed cord clamping, so we waited for the cord to go white before we cut it. I will say, and I think like this is important to say, I'm obsessed with my child, just to like I can't tell you how obsessed I am with him. But when I first saw him, I didn't feel anything like particular apart from relief that the pain was over. I didn't feel a rush of love. I didn't feel anything. I just kind of looked at him and was like, oh, like, and I actually said to Connor at some point, I think it's written in here somewhere, but I like looked at Connor while this baby's like on my chest wrapped in a towel, and I just looked at him and went, oh, it's so weird. It's like the baby was like more of a concept to me. Like when he was in my body, I sort of wasn't really picturing a physical baby. And maybe this would be different if it was your second pregnancy because you've actually done it before, so you know what to picture. But like I wasn't picturing a baby. I was just like, he was just more like a little feeling, a flutter, he was like a little fish caught on a line inside me. So to have him actually appear was like a bit bizarre, and it was a bit like having a stranger put on my chest. Not in a like, I didn't bear him any ill will, obviously, but I didn't know him. And I know some people seem to have the experience that when they see their baby, they're like, oh my God, it's you, I've known you my whole life. But I'm not sure that that's how I felt, and I just think it's important to share that because I think sometimes the feelings that we have that might seem different from the standard experience might be things that push us into things like postpartum depression. If you feel that you didn't have what maybe other people have had, I think like the whole experience is so variable that it's just really important to share like those little weird idiosyncrasies that happen. I mean, I felt super powerful and I felt amazing after I'd done it. Like it was one of the most like, well, it was probably the most incredible experience I've ever had. Not that I'd want to like relive it every day because it was painful, but it was like just so like the closest thing to magic that you'll ever experience. So yeah, it's just like, I'm just like, yeah, here I'm just waffling about how profound it felt, like powerful warrior strength that women have had for centuries to complete this task for our species. Childbirth is like the furthest from mundane as any experience could possibly be. It's like profound and has gravitas. And then she shows him to me, a complete stranger, and she's asking me, what have you got? And I just say in a daze, thinking, a baby? Obviously, you're looking at what bits they got given at birth, but like I was looking at his face, so it didn't even occur to me to like look at what gender he was, because I'd not seen his face yet. So I was like looking at this baby's face, like, oh my God, that was inside me a second ago. So yeah, that's crazy. And then yeah, shortly after that I said, the baby felt more like an abstract concept before. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't like to see an actual baby. So I remember after this being like, I was trembling. I just wanted to like sit back in the water and relax. So at one point I remember saying, could someone take this baby off me so that I can just sit in the water as if I'm in like a jacuzzi, so that I can just relax a bit. But yeah, I didn't like burst into tears like I thought I would. Obviously, like Connor cried and my mum cried, but I think part of it like was the relief that it was over and I was okay, and the pain was over for me. I think Connor found it quite hard to like witness me in pain, in a more intense pain than you've ever witnessed before. So here we come to the only complication we had, because up until this point we basically had exactly what, like I didn't have a written down birth plan, because I wasn't going into a hospital, or so I thought. I probably should have written one down in case I did go into hospital, but I never had a written down birth plan. And I think part of it was because I didn't want to feel disappointed when it didn't go the way I wanted it. I was trying to stay flexible before the birth, which I think is a good thing to do. I was trying to just be like, the only thing that matters is that everyone gets out okay. However it happens, and it'll still be magical. So yeah, after a little while, this is our only complication. We waited for the placenta to come, and the midwife offered me like the shot that helps the placenta come. But by this point, I'm super cocky. I'm feeling confident. Everything's just gone perfectly fine. My body's done what it needed to do with pretty much no help. So I was like, oh, should we just wait and see if it comes? It'll probably just come on its own, won't it? Anyway, I did have some cramps, which I think normally would have pushed the placenta out, but it did pass what looked like more like amniotic sac and general, like fluid and the sort of membrane. So I think a lot of my amniotic sac was up at the top and the baby was like down at the bottom. So I think there was quite a bit left. So the cramps that would normally push the placenta out seemed to just push that out, and the placenta never came. So at this point, I mean, TMI, but I've just got an umbilical cord kind of like dangling from me. They've left it very long, but the placenta's just not coming. So we tried, I stayed in the pool for a bit, then after a while, the midwife said, do you want to get out and we can try breastfeeding? That might help to push the placenta out. It might kickstart something, you know, your hormones. So we do a bit of breastfeeding. He latches on fine, so that goes really well. They helped me to go to the toilet because they said if you sit on the toilet, that might, you know, prompt something to come out. Didn't happen. When you're trying to get to the toilet but you've still got an umbilical cord dangling from you, that's where the roses tin came in. We waited for about an hour. I had the injection, and then we waited 2 more hours, and obviously in between this we did things like breastfeeding and going to the toilet to see if any movement. Anyway, it just wasn't happening. So that placenta did not want to leave. It got very cozy up there. So the midwife had a little look. She got me to sort of lie down. She had a little look to see if she could feel it, and she was like, "Oh, I can feel it. It is like close to the, you know, the exit, but it's just not made it through the gift shop." She was like, I can try and have a little wiggle manually, but I'm a bit scared to do that at home, because she's like, I don't know if I get the placenta out manually, you could hemorrhage behind it. And I can't deal with a hemorrhage at home. So she was like, we want to transfer you into hospital to see if we can get the placenta out. If we can't get it out manually, you will have to have surgery to get it out, which I was trying not to be crushed by, because I was like, you know, I've got my baby and it all went well, and the actual birth experience was really nice. So, you know, like, let's not get emotional about this. It's okay if I have to have surgery. And I think I did, like, at the time I was taking it really well. After the fact, I thought about it and I thought, yeah, no, I think I really would have been bummed afterwards, if I'd have had to have surgery and have an epidural. When I did the whole thing without it, I would have just been livid. Like, I could have not done all that pain for nothing. Because for me, the doing it all without really is all about how fast your recovery is and how you can, you know, you just feel like yourself again straight away. We got an ambulance called, and the ambulance took quite a long time to get to us as well, but I wasn't in any immediate danger. I wasn't hemorrhaging or anything. I was just retained placenta is what they call it. So they took me in an ambulance, which was the most exciting part because I've never been in an ambulance before. I went in the ambulance with the baby, and my mum drove Connor to the hospital because you can only have one person go with you in the ambulance, and the midwife wanted it to be her so that she could just, you know, be with me in case anything happened. But they let me carry the baby in my arms, wrapped in his little blankie, and sort of helped me to get onto the stretcher. Actually, at this point, one of the worst pains I felt was actually when I was laying on my back, but the placenta was still there, like the weight of it. They wanted me to like get my legs in so that they could put the sides up on the trolley, and just like trying to close my knees in was really difficult because of the feeling here. Like I had this really like low pain, like a low ache in my belly from where the placenta was sitting. And that was actually really bad. We got to the hospital. I'm trying not to be upset about it, you know, it's all fine. The home birth midwives hand us over to some of the delivery suite midwives, but we got put in a private room, so it was very nice that they dimmed the lights for us. It was very tranquil. I don't know if it was because it was a Sunday, so we were lucky, because maybe, I don't know, but maybe they don't schedule, you know, when you've got like a scheduled C-section and stuff, maybe they don't do scheduled stuff on Sundays or on weekends, so maybe it was quieter. But it was very quiet in the delivery ward. Didn't hear any screaming, didn't hear any babies. So we felt like we were some of the only people in there. We got in there, we got handed over to this other midwife who said, right, I'm going to try and put a cannula in case you have to go to surgery. And then we'll look and see if we can get the placenta out, which I wasn't fussed on because I hate having a cannula in, but at the time it didn't seem like a big deal because like I'd just been through labour, so I was like, I can do this. So I just give her my hand. Anyway, she kind of botched it, to be honest. She couldn't get it in. She tried like twice, and it was very painful when she was trying, like she was wiggling it around. And I was like, this is the point where I was gripping Connor's hand harder than I had done throughout the entire labour. So this was like, for me, the most painful bit. And I think it's because I had no distractions, and there's no there's no payoff. I've already got my baby, so like, what's this for? This doesn't seem like, as I suppose it's so I don't die, but you know, it just didn't seem like it had any payoff. So now I've got like massive bruise on my hand. And then she just says, do you want me to have another go, or do you want me to get someone else? Now, I don't know why she asked me this, but I was glad she did. And I remembered in the back of my head that my mum had told me that when she was stitched up after labour, she was stitched up by a student midwife, and they'd asked her, is it okay if a student stitches you up? And she at the time said, you know, she wouldn't have said boo to a goose. So she was just like, yeah, absolutely. Even though she didn't really want somebody inexperienced to do it. Anyway, she then got an infection, and it might not be related, it might have happened anyway, but she then got an infection in her stitches, and she's always regretted saying yes, because she was just like, when you're at your most vulnerable, you don't have to say yes to that if you're not comfortable with it, you know. Like, I just remembered her saying, you know, I wish I'd said no. So when she said, do you want me to get someone else? I just thought, yeah, go on. So I just go, yeah, go on, give someone else a go, you know, why not? They might just have more luck. You know, I was trying to be cash about it. So glad I said that, because the best thing I could have said, because she then leaves the room, brings in a different midwife who I think is the what's it called? Is it like the ward leader or something? Her name's Becky. She just comes in and she's like, right, what we're going to do is, she was like, it's the placenta, isn't it? Right. She was like, rolling her sleeves up. She's like, do you want me to have a go and getting the placenta out first? Because if we can get it out, you don't need the cannula. So I'm like, this woman's talking sense to me. So I'm like, yep, go on. So this is the worst bit. So she basically says, right, what we're going to do is, you're going to push for 4, then I'm going to pull for 4. Then you're going to push for 4, I'm going to pull for 4. And she's like, I can feel it. It's right there. It just needs some encouragement. So she's like, if you can push. And this is where I've never pushed on my back throughout this whole experience. And I now want to just salute anyone who's ever given birth on their back. How the hell you did that, I don't know, because this is the most painful thing ever. And it's just a placenta, you know, and the weight of it, I could just feel it like sitting in my pelvis, as if it was just, I can't explain. The pain made me feel nauseous. It made me feel a bit sick. But she didn't give me gas and air for the placenta. But Becky, my absolute hero, my angel, after a few goes, the placenta comes out. And I am ever grateful to her, because I didn't have to have surgery. So that was the main complication, now solved. So now they just wait for me to just check that I'm not hemorrhaging after the placenta. So basically they put a bunch of, like, a wad of, you know, whatever it is, cotton wool, gauze, I don't know. And then some like disposable knickers. And then they were like, right, we're just going to leave you for an hour, and then we're going to come back and check this. And if you haven't like bled through it, you're probably okay to, you know, to go home. Because my lovely home birth midwives had spoken to them before they left, and they came in to see us before they went, and they basically said, we've told them that you're on the rota for the home birth checks tomorrow, so if you're okay, they can discharge you tonight. They don't need to keep you overnight to do all the, you know, the checks they do on the second day. So that was really nice of them, because that meant that I basically got to go home and sleep in my own bed, and so we were only in hospital for 3 hours in total, and we were back home by midnight, which was just lovely, because basically we'd top and tailed the whole day. We'd gone from, like, it was like bookended with, I think I first got like the bloody show around 9 a.m, started to feel the contractions around 10, gave birth at like 4 p.m, waited another 3 hours, went into hospital around 7, and then my mum was called to pick us up before midnight, so we were home before midnight. So that was just like really nice of the home birth midwives to kind of make sure that the delivery suite midwives let me go home and didn't just keep us in overnight for the sake of it. And also we still got the tea and toast, which is the best bit about being in hospital. So they made us both tea and toast. I've watched a lot of these videos, and I'm aware that sometimes the partner does not get given any tea and toast. They offered it. They said, like, do you want anything as well? And I said, yeah. Like, Connor was going to say no because he didn't want to trouble anyone. And I just went, yes, can you bring him some, please? He has not eaten all day, because I knew he hadn't, because he'd been, you know, like watching me and on edge. So we both got tea and toast, the best tea and toast we've ever eaten. I also did obviously, even if you're having a home birth, you prep a hospital bag because you know you can be transferred in at any minute. So I had a stash of naked bars in my bag. So I got Connor to, as soon as the midwife left the room, I was like, go, 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 get the naked bars. So he brought me like, I think I ate like 3 in one go, because like as soon as all the like labour's over and the pain's gone, you're just like, well, now I'm ravenous and I've not eaten. I couldn't eat during labour. I know that some people manage to eat like snacks and biscuits, and I could, if like that's part of the reason I snapped at my mum and I just went, shut up. Was like, I was like, there's no way I can eat a biscuit right now. I'm in the zone. I didn't quite finish off, but basically, they came back to check if I was bleeding, and they were quite happy that I hadn't lost that much blood. And then they gave me gas and air while they checked if I needed stitches. And decided that it was just a graze, so I didn't need stitches. Tick, tick, tick on all the best possible outcomes here. So, oh yeah, so they left me and Connor in the room. We had like dimmed lights and we were just like taking it all in. And while we were like having our tea and toast and stuff, that was like when we discussed like the baby's name. So that was really nice for us, and like, because we had like a long list, but we didn't know the gender, and we didn't have it didn't have a top name for either. We just decided we wanted to like see what came to mind at the time. That was when we first decided the name, but we did basically said we needed to sleep on it and we wouldn't tell anyone until we'd like slept on it. So that was really nice. But yeah, I was literally like, I walked out of the hospital and my mum was like, are you for real? I was shuffling for weeks. I couldn't sit down. And you're walking like a few hours after giving birth. You're just like, I was just walking along. Connor was carrying the baby in the carrier. I was just walking along in my sliders out of the hospital, and got in the car and stuff. And my mum was like, are you okay? Can you sit down? Do you need a cushion? And I was like, no, I'm fine. So she couldn't believe how my recovery was compared to her experience, and she was very much not a fan of the idea of having a home birth for all the the usual reasons, like not feeling like it was safe and stuff. And after she witnessed mine, she was fully converted, and she was like, I really wish I could have had an experience like that. It was so like special and magical and private, and no one was pressuring you to do anything. And obviously hospitals back in her day were a bit more brutal. And then our first night with the baby was very, very calm, because obviously the baby's quite stunned by the birth. So he slept for most of the night. I think he did wake up and feed a couple of times, but it was mostly me waking up in a panic and shining a torch in his face, because he was just like breathing silently. I was like, can you not just, like, for once, like, I would actually like someone to snore, like I just wouldn't mind hearing a little snuffle just to know he's still awake. Well, not still awake, still alive. So occasionally I'd like turn my phone on and just be like, huh. But yeah, it was a really nice night. So we felt quite well rested. It was only after about a week the sleep deprivation started to kick in. Like, I can't recommend a home birth enough. I think it's like really important to exercise your right to choose. But I also just want to sort of add the caveat of this, of like, I had a friend who was giving birth the same week as me. She had the same plan as me. They had the pool in their house. They were ready to do a home birth, and because there was meconium in her waters when they broke, she was transferred to hospital straight away and had a series of different interventions in the end because her labour slowed down and didn't progress. So I just want to give you the caveat of like, with the best will in the world, you can plan to your heart's content, but you do need to be flexible about what the outcome is. And I do think like educating yourself on all the possible outcomes is essential in order to not feel like disappointed when it doesn't go to plan, because very rarely does it. It's not in your control. What is within your control is your mindset and your like level of preparation, your preparedness, what you'll say yes to, what you want to say no to. Like, I did some like hypnobirthing webinars and stuff, and I didn't find hypnobirthing that useful. And I don't know if it's because I already felt like most of it was, if you've done any kind of yoga or meditation before, I don't think hypnobirthing is that it's not offering you anything new. I do think the breathing exercises are helpful. I did use box breathing quite a bit because I find it helpful to have something to visualise because it's a distraction more than anything. It was something to focus on. Like I was doing box breathing while I was like leaning over the coffee table, and I was thinking of the coffee table as the box. So I was like, my eyes were tracing the square of the table. The same way that the comb, you know, supposedly like squeezing a comb is meant to, it's meant to be like your body can't focus on two different kinds of pain at once. So if you cause a pain in your hand, it distracts from this pain. I don't know if that's true, but it is a distraction nevertheless, because your mind is thinking, squeeze the comb. The same thing with the old wives' tales. Part of it may just be the power of, you know, manifestation and the placebo effect. If that's what it is and it helps, might as well do it. I think hypnobirthing just needs a rebrand. A lot of it was just education. A lot of it's just educating you on what happens during birth, what happens physiologically, what the different medical processes are, what, you know, what the terminology means, and all that stuff, what possible interventions you can have. All that stuff is really useful, but I almost think you're like better off calling it something different, because hypnobirthing makes it sound like some kind of like ooey gooey process that will do something magical to save you from all that stuff. And I think like a lot of the hypnobirthing course was just about education. Maybe people are more likely to do it if they think it's going to ease their pain, and actually it's a good way to sneak that information to them in a covert way. So maybe that's a good thing. But I personally didn't. It didn't make me feel like it reduced my pain or anything. I just felt like, you know, sticking with the classics, the breathing, knowing everything, being prepared and knowing like everything you can possibly know is like, that's the best thing you can do. As for all wives' tales, while I'm here, raspberry leaf tea. It's meant to tone the uterus, to speed up your labour and kind of make your contractions more effective. No idea if it does that, but hey, I did it and I had quite a short labour. It was only about 6 hours. Dates are the same. They're meant to soften your cervix and speed up your labour, and because it like thins the cervix faster. It's like 4 big ones a day. You can eat them in various ways. My favourite way was with peanut butter and dark chocolate and sea salt, layered. Delicious. Again, I had a really short labour, so maybe it helped. And then specifically the day before, but I was doing it for a few weeks before on and off, is like walking up and down the stairs sideways and curb walking. So it's meant to be like the uneven motion is meant to like help create more space in your pelvis, to encourage the baby to get lower into the pelvis. And I did a lot of it the night before or the day before I went into labour. I did a lot of walking up and down the stairs sideways. So who knows if that kicked off my labour. I mean, if you're going to trust anyone, it's got to be the matriarchy. It's got to be the old wives. But also it can't hurt, but obviously just use all of the things I've said within the guidelines of your own pregnancy. So if you've got gestational diabetes, the dates might not be a good idea. Raspberry leaf tea, I think you're only supposed to have it at a certain late stage of your pregnancy. And if it causes too many Braxton Hicks contractions, you might want to give it a breather. But yeah, use at your own risk. But that's what I did. And I've got no idea if it helped or if I was just lucky. Maybe I was. Yeah, so that was my birth story. It's taken me a year, so I'm glad the stars finally aligned to make this happen. And if you have any questions, please just put them in the comments and let me know. And if you're interested in my writings and thoughts and poetry about motherhood and childbirth, there is other stuff on my page that you can explore, because that is the main thing I do here. But I just really wanted to make this video so that I never forget this experience, because it was one of the most intense and crazy experiences of my life. And for the weeks after, that's all I wanted to talk to anyone about. I didn't care if it was TMI, I didn't care if people were squeamish, I just really wanted to talk about it. And I always want to talk to other women about their experiences of birth, because it is just like the maddest, craziest thing that this huge, you know, portfolio spectrum of human existence can provide us with. Like, childbirth is one of the craziest, most magical, most powerful, intense primal experiences that we can do. So yeah, I'm just really into it, and I hope I get to do it again one day. And I also was one of the very few people who I pretty much said straight away that I would do it again. Easily do it again. And I know a lot of people, it takes them a few years for the memory to fade, for them to build up to the thought of going through it again. But for me, I was like, without a doubt, I'd do it again. Like, every time anyone came to see us with the baby, I was like, I'd do it again. I'd do it again. It was just the coolest, craziest experience that my body could ever go through. And mind, you know, I think also it really like gives you confidence that your mind is so resilient, and you like as a person, you're so powerful. I don't know, it just gave me like this massive confidence boost. I just feel like very capable of anything now. It's crazy that we treat this like just a run-of-the-mill experience that, oh, well, loads of women like are doing it every day, so it's no big deal. It's humongous, it's momentous, and we should give women more credit for, you know, doing humanity this service. Every month, my local hospital publishes their birthing stats, and it's like how many births in the birthing centre, how many births in the delivery suite, how many home births, you know, how many water births, blah, 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 blah. And it was really interesting that I think the month I gave birth, I think I was only one of like maybe 3 home births in that month, compared to, you know, tens or hundreds of births in the hospital setting, a lot of C-sections, and I do think that's a really interesting like way that the kind of the medicalisation of birth has become quite standard. So I do think that's interesting to explore. Anywho, big disclaimer is, if I lived really far from a hospital, I probably would not have decided to have a home birth, because obviously anything can go wrong, and that time delay might be like life or death to you. So I live 5 minutes from a hospital, and I knew that my mum can drive, so I knew that I had someone who would be able to drive me there, even if we couldn't get an ambulance very fast. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was literally like, the risk to me is quite slim because I can get to a hospital within 5 minutes. But the risk to you, if you live further away or you live somewhere more rural, may be greater. And that is obviously a really good reason to consider the birth location. But I will say a lot of hospitals offer birthing centres, which offer a very similar experience to a home birth. So it's midwife led. Some of them have pools, you know, they have rooms that are more set up to facilitate different positions for birth. So definitely consider that in your birth plan. It is within our power and within our rights to choose. And I do think that it's great that lots of NHS trusts will support home births in the UK. Also, if you're interested in what made me decide to have a home birth, let me know in the comments and I will try to answer them, because it was just too much to include that in this video as well. Hopefully this was useful, and hopefully it wasn't too long and boring. Okay, it is goodbye from me. It's goodbye from the sacred text, and it is goodbye from Eeyore. I'm going to just start this again just in case I decide to can everything I've done so far. This is going to be such a bitch to edit.